Let's kick off here. Acting President David Mabuza will be chairing the National Coronavirus Command Council meeting this afternoon. President Cyril Ramaphosa is recovering after testing positive for COVID-19. Mabuza has the tough responsibility of steering the ship on whether to tighten lockdown regulations due to the soaring numbers of people testing positive. The Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Phaahla, will brief the NCCC on the high numbers as the country has entered a fourth wave dominated by the new Omicron variant. Now, this comes as a number of South Africans are planning to travel to their home provinces for the festive season. All right, now let's discuss what is likely to come out of that meeting. We're now joined on the line by our reporter, Samkele Maseko. Samkele, of course, everybody watching this meeting very, very closely, given this Omicron variant and also the high numbers that we are currently seeing now in terms of infections. What do we know about this meeting so far?
At this point in time, what we do know is that this meeting will take place later on this evening, which will be chaired by the Deputy President David Mabuza, who is the acting President of the Republic of South Africa, particularly after President Cyril Ramaphosa contracted the COVID-19 virus and tested positive, and he's currently out of circulation at this point in time and won't be performing any of his presidential powers, and he has handed them over to the Deputy President. We do know that the Minister of Health, Joe Phaahla, will be giving a briefing and an update to the Command Council and what has transpired and the high numbers of COVID-19 infections. We do know that the Premier of the Eastern Cape Province, Oscar Mabuya, did brief the media earlier on today on COVID-19 updates within his province. We do know that the Western Cape has effectively entered the fourth wave of this particular fourth wave of COVID-19 infections, along with Gauteng as well, which on an average day in the past 2 weeks, Gauteng would see a number of about 10,000 to 11,000 infections per day, which also saw one of the highest number of infections in one day in the country, which reached about 18,800 COVID-19 infections in one day. So there are those pressures that government is facing to impose stricter COVID-19 regulations and lockdown regulations in order to try and curb the escalating numbers of COVID-19 infections. It also comes at a time when many South Africans will be traveling to their respective home provinces for the festive season, as you will see a mass exodus of people leaving the economic hub of the country, which is Gauteng.
Now, of course, the person actually that's on the hot seat is the Deputy President, who has this tough responsibility. I mean, if you've been following any of the tweets on the SABC channels, you'll see that a lot of people saying that they have trust in the Deputy President, that he'll make the right decision. Of course, the country doesn't want to go into another tight lockdown. We've seen what it has done to the economy. Samkele, perhaps paint a picture in terms of when these meetings happen, especially when they're chaired by the President, or in this case, the Deputy President. What is the likely steps that we know will follow? We know that they normally have some sort of cabinet meetings. When is South Africa, when are the South African citizens going to actually know what has transpired following this meeting?
Before South Africans know what has transpired before this meeting, the NCC would meet, they would deliberate, they would come up with recommendations, which those recommendations would go to Cabinet, which Cabinet normally sits on a Wednesday, and Cabinet will deliberate, take up decisions, and then after that would be succeeded by which the President and the Deputy President then have engagements and meetings with various stakeholders, whether it be labor, it be business, and it would be other entities or sectors that have a role to play when it comes to the decisions that the President will have to take, particularly knowing that the economy has been battered by the various lockdown regulations that have been instituted by government, knowing very well that the tourism sector has been heavily affected, and it is the President himself who has said to those countries, particularly within the United Kingdom, that they should not close borders to South Africa, as that is some sort of discrimination and racism when it comes to this Omicron variant that is coming to South Africa, and that will have adverse effect on the tourism industry of the Republic of South Africa and also within the SADC region. Also, when the President went about his Western African trip as head of state, going to those 4 African countries, 2 Francophone and 2 Anglophone countries, where he spoke about these vaccine passports and how those countries, foreign countries, should not have that negative attitude when it comes to African countries and imposing traveling bans on them, as that will have adverse effect on those countries. The economy. So it also worked vice versa within internally in South Africa, where it becomes very difficult for the NCC and for cabinet and the government at large to say that they would be restricting travel between provinces within the country, as that will also hurt the local economy when it comes to your local B&Bs, when it comes to your local nature reserves in the country, where South Africans would particularly want to go to the south coast, for example, of Durban, the Hibiscus. Some would want to go to the north coast. Some would want to go to the Western Cape. Some would want to drive alongside the Garden Route, which is between the Eastern Cape Province and the Western Cape Province, and view sightseeing and go to the various tourist attractions, which would have an adverse effect for the tourist destinations, whether it be in Saldanha Bay, whether it be in George, whether it be in Hout Bay or in Camps Bay in the Western Cape. It would have adverse effect for areas like Kruger National Park within the Mpumalanga Province. It would have adverse effect for city in the Northwest Province. Those are some of the economic areas where South Africans can go to for leisure, and that would hamper them if there were to be a provincial ban in the country. Then it comes to issues of entertainment. You have your restaurants who would not want their times limited again, as they have been hurt badly within the various lockdowns that have taken place in the country. Then you've got the beverage industry, which will also want to have alcohol sales permitted throughout this festive season, so they could be able to make money and to avert the losses that they did during the course of the year. So the Deputy President, who is the acting President of the Republic of South Africa, the NCC, the Cabinet, will have to mitigate the issue of saving lives and also just oppose it to also saving the economy of the country, which has also been battered by the continuous load shedding, which has been rolled out by the failing power utility Eskom.
Samkele, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for painting that picture. Of course, Samkele, painting that picture of just what would be at stake, should the country go into another tighter lockdown. Of course, we are watching the story very closely, and Samkele will be bringing us the very latest as it comes to that National Coronavirus Command Council meeting, which is yet to take place today.